Hello, everyone. Before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to remind you that my book, Drummers on Drumming, is available now on Amazon as both a paperback and an ebook. Based on the Big Fat 5 segment of this podcast, where I sit down with my favorite drummers to discuss the 5 records and stories that shaped their approach to the instrument, this book is packed with insights from the drummers who redefined how we think about the modern drum set. You can grab your copy now by checking the link in this episode's show notes or simply searching Drummers on Drumming on Amazon. So thank you for all the support, and now let's get into the show. What is up? Welcome back to Big Fat... Oops, I'm hitting my desk. Welcome back to Big Fat 5, a podcast financially supported by Big Fat Snare Drum. My name is Ben Hilsinger, and this week's guest is Chris Icasiano. Chris is a Filipino-American percussionist and composer from Redmond, Washington, same hometown as me. His specialization in free improvisation and experimental music, combined with his vast experience with pop and rock, have made him a highly sought-after collaborator in all genres of music. His debut solo work, Provinces, explores the complexity of cultural identity and community as a second-generation immigrant in Seattle. You can find Chris on the road with Fleet Foxes and Pure Bathing Culture, or at home in Seattle playing weirdo experimental shows as a soloist or with longtime drum and sax duo Bad Luck. I hope you enjoy the 5 records that helped shape Chris Icasiano into the drummer he is today. Cheers. So you are very improvisational and very expressive, and ultimately, when you write your own music, what feeling do you want to express with music, with drums?
Oh, really? Just emotion, just feeling the music beyond like the notes. And, I guess we can kind of touch on this like when we're listening to the things I picked, but I've always approached drums as a way to convey things about myself or things that I want to say that I really only can through the drums, Mm-hmm. And I think I really found that part of my voice from a deep exploration of improvisation and letting the moments be just a really true, snapshot of like what I'm thinking or feeling or experiencing in any given moment. Yeah, and I guess, when it comes to the music that I write, there's not a particular thing that I'm wanting the listener to like feel. I just want them to feel something. I want them to hear it, and I want the listener to be able to reflect on it and bring their own interpretation to it, whether it is happiness or sadness or grief or joy. And I think that it can, with the music that I write, it can be different for everyone who's listening at any point.
Mm-hmm. Which, and sadness and happiness are not mutually exclusive. You can feel them at the same time listening to a piece of music.
Yeah, like Casey Musgrave said.
Oh, is that what she said?
Happy and sad at the same time.
Oh, nice.
You know the song?
I don't,
Happy
but
and
I'm
sad.
happy. I'm happy and sad. I just quoted Casey Musgrave. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, let's just hop into number 1, and I'm assuming I'm going to pronounce it wrong, but it's the Koln concert. The artist is Keith Jarrett. Release year is 1975. The key track, because I force you to pick one, and we'll listen to it in a second, is part 1. Yeah. So, what about this music, or what about Keith, drew you to him and all that jazz, and when did you find him and all that?
Well, I found Keith Jarrett at a pretty young age, probably like 11 or 12 or something. And it was a point when I was just starting to learn about jazz, and I was really into like jazz trios, like piano trios. And my teacher was like, "Oh, you should check out Keith Jarrett. His drummer is Jack DeJohnette, who is like probably one of my all-time favorites, if not all-time, although not on my list," which was
that's okay.
It was hard for me to not do that, but yeah, I became a really big fan of Keith Jarrett, and I found this record. It's a really famous record, and his approach is that it's all improvised. It's completely improvised, beginning to end. And as an improviser, I just found it so fascinating that he could perform a whole concert entirely improvised and have it be so compelling and melodic and beautiful and seamless in its transitions. And I think about that in drumming. The piano has obviously can play melody and harmony in a very specific way, that most people's ears are attuned to hearing and accepting. And when it comes to improvising, I think about like, can drums be that compelling? Like, could I sit down and listen to a drummer play that melodically and harmonically and tie together ideas in such a way that it is compelling beginning to end for an hour or longer? So anyway, when I heard this piece, this concert, I was just intrigued by how compelling the music is. Like, I can sing just about every note and like every section, and I know exactly how it progresses, and it, in my improviser brain, it's very logical and compositional, and it's all freely improvised, which is incredible to me.
Awesome. Well, let's just start this from the beginning. Here is the Koln Concert, Part 1. Is this a common thing he does? Does he do entire concerts improvised?
He does, yeah. He has a trio that he's been playing with for decades, which was kind of my introduction to Keith Jarrett. Mm-hmm. And then I discovered like his solo performances. I mean, just listening to that now, because I actually haven't listened to that record in a little while. But when I listen to the way that he transitions from one section to the next, and I realize, like, I think I've probably taken, even more than I realized from his approach. When you're improvising, the really volatile moments are the transitions. if you do it great, then it's going to be seamless and it's going to like really elevate the performance. And if you don't nail it, it's going to be like sound like you messed up.
Yep.
You know? And I think that, yeah, they're just like textural ways in which I've like taken his approach, you know, and brought it to my drumming when I'm improvising. I probably need to go back and investigate some more too, to really kind of understand it. But I love how patient it is, and yeah, everything about it.
Beautiful. All right, number 2. Speaking of beautiful, I think this man is my favorite drummer. I think he's my favorite drummer. So the
I can't
album
remember
is,
what number 2 is. What's number 2?
The album's Perceptual. The artist is Brian Blade Fellowship.
Okay.
Yeah, the release year is 2000. Key track again. Listen to everything Brian's on. Reconciliation, and the drummer is of course Brian Blade. So, yeah, take it away. Where'd this come into your life?
I probably discovered it in maybe 2003, 2004.
Okay.
And then I saw the band play shortly after that, maybe 2005 or 6. And
in Seattle?
In Seattle, yeah. There's a little festival that I was at the time volunteering at called the Ballard Jazz Festival.
Yeah.
They were getting great headliners. And Brian Blade was like the headliner of the very first festival. And so that was a point at which I was really getting into this record. And similarly to Keith Jarrett, where his ideas flow so seamlessly, and like he can both be delicate and forceful and impactful all at the same time, you know. And I think this record too was also speaking very much to my kind of like my folky kind of tendencies in terms of my musical interests, you know, because it's a very jazzy record, obviously, but there are more kind of like rootsy folky kind of vibes to it too.
Mm-hmm.
His playing says something beyond the notes that he plays when I listen to it. It says something about an experience or about a reality, you know, that I only hear when he's playing the drums.
Yep. And speaking of him performing in Seattle, there's so many good performances of him throughout the years because he's had a very long career. But one of his performances for KEXP is a really well shot, really well recorded version of him with Fellowship, and I recommend everyone listen to it. And of course, if you don't know, KEXP is an amazing radio station based out of Seattle. But yeah, check out that video, and then here's Reconciliation, and then we can, if you want to, we can keep talking about Brian all day.
Sure.
No one makes their cymbals sound as good as him. I don't know what it is.
When I was revisiting this record too, I was like, okay, when I'm playing jazz and I'm like playing on my cymbals, I'm just trying to sound like Brian Blade 24/7.
Everyone should. My God.
And everything he plays can be so subtle, but like intentional and deliberate.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no extra notes there. Like they all have to be there. I don't know if you can fast forward through this. I kind of want to hear some of this saxophone solo that happens, which is just like this beautiful epic build.
So this is, let's see if I get the title of this album right. So The Trials of Van Occupanther. The artist is Midlake, and the release year is 2006. Key tracks, Roscoe, and then the titular track, Van Occupanther. But the drummer is Mackenzie Smith. I know nothing about Mackenzie, so I'm really excited.
Oh my God.
I know nothing about Midlake, so tell me everything you need to know.
Well, I discovered Midlake in the, I guess, mid 2000s. A friend gave me just like a mixed CD with the song Roscoe on there, and I was kind of just deep into like indie rock world while still playing jazz, trying to find my way, I guess, playing in rock and pop bands and playing weird free jazz gigs. And I heard this record, and first I was like, who's this drummer? Like, this is sick. Because it was indie rock drumming that just felt different. It was like the phrasing was different, the ways that he fills, the ways that he kind of frames sections of a song were just like so different to me, and I think really spoke to my jazz tendencies. Only to find out too that he and this band, a lot of them are like from Denton, like, and went to like North Texas, like studied music in North Texas. So they also like have deep jazz backgrounds. A kind of a cool, fun, like anecdotal story about that was I was playing in a band, and we went and played End of the Road Fest in the UK. And this is my first time going to Europe. And I was like, man, I finally like made it. Like, I'm traveling abroad. I'm like playing in bands, like playing festivals. And then I saw that Midlake was like headlining the show. And I was like, oh shit, I have to go see this. And so I went to the show, made my way to the front of the stage, and like got like this great view. And then I was like, whoa, I've got an artist pass. I can just like go backstage and they'll just let me backstage.
What am I doing?
What am I doing here? I just went backstage and I watched the entire set, like standing right behind Mackenzie as he was like playing this, playing the set. And I was like still a huge fan, kind of like freaking out because like it was all an experience of a lot of firsts at that moment.
Sure.
Just, like being in England and like being at a festival and like getting backstage and like seeing this band that I love. It was
so fun.
Amazing. Yeah. But anyway, Mackenzie Smith is an incredible drummer, and like everything he does on this record is just, it's rock and roll, and it's just different. It's just like, it's tasteful, and it's unique. And I really appreciate that about his drumming.
Awesome. All right. Well, here's Roscoe by Midlake.
Stone cutters made them from stones, chosen specially for you and I, who live inside. The mountaineers gather timber pile.
Check out where he plays his fills, and also where he moves from the hi-hat to the ride at different points in the verse.
On the roof leaks, it got started, and now when the rain comes, we can be thankful. When the mountaineers saw that everything failed.
I'm also someone like I'm not really like a drummer's drummer. Like I don't really listen to like a lot of drummers in that way, you know, like because I'm like, what does the band sound like? Like how does, you know, drummer is one part of the band. But this was one moment where I was like, what is going on here? This is so cool. And it doesn't stick out necessarily because it fits the music so well.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was like digging into it, I was like, whoa, these fills are cool and weird and are happening in weird spots. And like the way he's moving from one texture to another are in places that I don't expect.
Yep.
Yeah. Something that I think I very much like try to bring to my playing is like, how do I play this rock beat? Or like, you know, how am I playing in this like folk rock band that I can bring something to that's a little bit like spicy.
Yeah.
I think that was maybe one thing too that I was drawn to was like they come from a deep jazz background and I'm hearing that in there too. And it's also not getting in the way of the music, where I think for me at that point in my life, like my jazz background was like getting deeply in the way of the like pop and rock music I was playing.
Yes. Which, yeah, that's a hard transition. I mean, going from indie then to jazz is also a hard transition, but going the other way is, yeah. Can you just shut up back there?
Yeah. Just like playing too much all the time, just like filling in every, you know, and to hear it done in such a beautiful, tasteful way was really exciting to me.
Absolutely. All right, so number 4, Catch 33. This is quite the left turn. I love it. The artist is Meshuggah. The release year is 2005, and a few of the key tracks in Death is Death, Autonomy Lost, and The Paradoxical Spiral. And the drummer's Thomas Hawk. So what about Meshuggah turned you on, and what point did you hear about Meshuggah?
I heard about Meshuggah in kind of like the latter part of my like studying at the University of Washington. I had a professor there who was into it and kind of turned a bunch of us onto it.
What class was that for? He was a professor of what?
Jazz studies.
Oh, jazz studies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Kung
Cool.
Vu, who's a great trumpet player who teaches here in Seattle. And
Awesome.
and maybe I don't know if do you know Ted Poor?
Yes, Ted Poor will be on the show in the next little bit. Yeah.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, because Ted teaches at the University of Washington.
Awesome.
He was a runner-up for me, like on this list too, because Ted is a huge influence on like my playing and my approach. Like I've taken so much from him. But I heard Meshuggah, and actually, I'm not like a metalhead. Like there's a couple bands that I know and really like. And when I heard Meshuggah, I think it was also speaking to my very like the complexity of the music that they play was speaking to, my very academic kind of musical brain at the time, because it was like this hard, harsh, really aggressive music, but just had such complexity that was like, I was interested in those juxtapositions. But I heard this record and it just immediately influenced like everything that I was like playing and writing. At this point, I was getting very much into free jazz and experimental improvisation and like, new music composition. And I was really wanting to like find my path in the jazz world, I guess, because as much as I love playing swing and, playing modern jazz, like I was also realizing that like, that's not where I excel, and like not artistically, it wasn't where I wanted to go. And I think when I heard Meshuggah, it was like, whoa, I could take some of this and like incorporate it into my like writing and make music that is, has the jazz tradition in it, but like sounds a little bit more like this, and was a little bit more in line with what I was doing at the time. But anyway, yeah, this record was just like blew my mind in terms of its complexity and its execution and interesting like rhythmic content. And just like, I was just so deeply into it for several years. And it influenced a lot of things that I wrote around that time.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Which song do you want to listen to? In Death, Autonomy Lost, or The Paradoxical Spiral?
Let's do In Death, I guess.
All right, here we go.
And actually, okay, before we check out this riff, don't worry about trying to figure out the meter that it's in, but just check out how he like puts the snare drum on the backbeat, no matter where he is in the like rhythmic cycle. Because the backbeat stays the same, and there's this rhythmic cycle that happens underneath it that shifts like every bar or whatever, So hip, so cool.
All right, here is In Death is Death.
Come on.
I would love to be in a jam session when they're working out riffs. You know, like how does that? What's the genesis of these things? Is it him? Is it? I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe you know. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe that's where I'm not that great of an interview because I don't actually know a whole lot about these bands or like their process. I'm just like, this record is awesome and I love it and it's making me feel something. And I think maybe
It's all you need to know.
this is maybe the other extreme of what I've been talking about, you know, but doing the same thing. You know what I mean? Like when I hear this, like, well, first I love that like it's a metal and it's like not fast. For the most part, every song that they play, like tempos are pretty slow. A lot of focus on that kind of like halftime backbeat, you know, especially in weird odd meters where like the backbeat is going to shift. Like as you're listening to it and you're like bobbing your head, like there's no question as to like where, you know, we're bobbing our head because we know exactly where that backbeat is coming in, even though the rhythmic cycle underneath it is like shifting every bar or whatever because it's in an odd meter.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, when I hear that, it's just like, I think I feel something from the same place that I feel when I listen to Brian Blade or when I listen to Keith Jarrett. It's just like, it's committed and it's intense. And it's like, there's something about it that just like gets me amped. And I think with this band too, that record is particularly cool because there's a lot of like kind of peaks and valleys. Like it doesn't stay in one place for the whole record or something. There's a lot of times when it's just like kind of guitar drones that are happening for several minutes, you know, that build into, you know, some kind of big climax or whatever. But I mean, I could never imagine to be able to play like that. Like that's completely beyond anything that I think that I'm capable of, but I love it. Yeah,
for sure. All right, so number 5, and again, this is an artist I know nothing about, so I'm excited to learn. The album is Time, The Revelator, and the artist is Gillian Welch, released year's 2001. Key tracks, again, listen to the whole album, but you said I Dream a Highway, Dear Someone, and Revelator, and you said drummer is none, and I did listen to a few tracks on this, and yeah, there's not a whole lot of percussion going on, so take it away.
No drummer.
Yeah.
If there is any, I think it is like Gillian like playing drums, but like that's not the point of it for me. It's
Sure.
I guess this is kind of around maybe a little earlier than my Meshuggah age. I was just really deeply into like soft, you know, quiet acoustic music. Like really loved Gillian and really loved like Iron and Wine, and just, you know, was in this place of like that was making me feel the feels, and probably kind of why I was also gravitated towards Brian Blade because it had that similar like folky feel. But friend played Gillian Welch for me, and I just like became deeply obsessed for many years. And this record, like I still listen to once a month at least. I went to go see her perform, and it was at the Paramount Theater in Seattle. It's just her and David Rawlings, the other guitar player. And the way in which they were able to like captivate an audience of, I don't know what the capacity there is, like maybe 3,000 people or something.
Sounds right.
You know, just hold everyone's attention with just 2 voices and 2 guitars, where you could like, you know, you could hear pin drop and everyone was like hanging on every single note and every word was just incredible to me. Like it was like, you know, another moment where I was like, how does anyone do that? You know, how does Keith Jarrett, you know, improvise like that? How does Meshuggah like make this music? Like, how does Gillian Welch captivate an audience in this way? You know, thousands of people. And this record, Time the Revelator, you know, the track I chose on there was I Dream a Highway. I mean, just go check out this record and just listen to it beginning to end. But the very last song on this record is called I Dream a Highway, and it's 15 minutes long. And it is a single melody that repeats over and over and over with, you know, little variation because they're performing it, you know, slight like vocal harmony changes and obviously different lyrics. But I listened to this song, and I could just, even though it's 15 minutes long, I could just keep listening to it over and over and over and over again. And I think I have in my life, in my past, I've just listened to it because the melody is so compelling. The intention and the commitment behind it is just so beautiful. And in terms of drumming, there may not be drums on this record, but like when I listen to this, like I'm also trying to get that feeling in my playing. What is the thing that makes me hear the same melody over and over again and not get tired of it and just want to keep hearing it more? Is that possible in drums? Like, can I do that? I don't know if I can do that. I'm sure someone can do it, but like, that's what I'm going for. Yeah, maybe let's just hear a little bit of it.
Here we go. Here's I Dream a Highway. Here we go.
Buckle up.
Oh, I dream a highway back to you, love. A winding ribbon with a band of gold. A silver vision come and rest my soul. I dream a highway back to you.
That's the whole melody.
John, he's kicking out the footlights. The grand old Opry's got a brand new band. Lord, let me die with a hammer in my hand. And I dream a highway back to you. I think I moved down into Memphis and think
I guess this also came to me, in a time when I was like touring a lot and driving up and down like the I-5, like driving through the desert. If you can imagine this driving through the desert, just the perfect music.
Just looking out the window, thinking about life.
I think about the drums and it's like I want every brush stroke and every note to like be that impactful, whether I'm playing really quiet or whether I'm playing like loud and furious or whatever. Like there's a part of me where I think all of this music exists in my playing, no matter like what I'm doing with it. And I'm loving being able to, because I've been playing in the Fleet Foxes for a couple years, and kind of the perfect band to be able to do this kind of thing. And because it's music that I've loved for a long time, and guys that I've known forever, and it's a real privilege and treat to get to play with them. But I feel like being able to bring the kind of intention that I'm kind of describing, that I've taken from these records in that band is like particularly rewarding, because the music is emotional and emotive and dynamic, and I feel like I can draw from all these things, and I can also there's space for me to do weird shit in there too.
Hey, we love doing weird shit for sure.
Yeah.
We do have a few more minutes left, and yeah, you do a whole lot. And are you still doing the racer sessions and all that stuff? Is that still a part of your weekly thing you do in your home?
Yeah, for those of you out there listening, the Racer Sessions was a performance series in Seattle that was kind of centered around new music, new composition, and free improvisation. There'd be a presenter that would play a set of music, and then we would open it up to a free improv session. The idea being that the opening set would influence what happens during the free jam, so that the free jam is like focused and not a free for all, although it could be a free for all.
Sure,
once
yeah.
in a while.
You're setting the intent, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we were at the time, when we started this more than 10 years ago, we were deep into learning about free improvisation and wanted to give it more of a framework. that was the move. And, we did it weekly for a really long time. It's still going now every other month in a different place. Shout out to Cafe Racer, which is, I don't know if you've ever been to Cafe Racer in Seattle, but it's near the Trading Musician. I don't know if you ever went to the Trading Musician in Seattle.
I have 2 holiday toms from Rogers Holiday Toms. I believe it was from Sean T. Lane sold them to me.
Yeah, Sean Lane. I'm using his hi-hats on my current setup. Great drummer.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, Cafe Racer was just like a hub for artists and weirdos and all this kind of like amazing stuff that was happening in the mid late 2000s. And yeah, I've been less involved because I have a toddler and I've been on tour a lot and there was a pandemic. So but I love that the Racer session is still going after having started it years and years and years ago, and that I can still go and show up and participate.
And for everyone, I actually just bought your record last night. I bought your vinyl last night.
Thank you.
So I'll be getting that soon. But talk maybe a little bit about your solo stuff, what you're up to, how people can reach out to you if they do want to talk to you about improvisation, if they want to, just get to know you outside of the podcast, because you're a very interesting person. Do all that, and then I'll let you get on with your busy day and because you have a toddler. So,
on Instagram you can find me at Chris Icasiano. Icasiano. Yeah, this record, a record that I love and put so much time and effort into, and then it came out on February 29th of 2020.
I saw that, yeah. Great timing, bud. Yeah, speaking of drummer, you have horrible timing.
Just like, it was real sadness that I had all these, things booked and getting a lot of requests, and then all of a sudden it just stopped. But this record is really my first solo record. It's kind of centered around the idea of drone and cyclical patterns that when you sit with them for a long time, you start hearing a lot of melodic content in them, even though it is just a cyclical drum pattern that's happening. And the idea for me is that there's so much interesting things that happen in the drums that when you listen to them in a way that is not typical, or the way that drums have, been used in music, there's so much more there that can be heard when you let yourself hear it. Not to say that I'm like a pioneer in this in any means, but this was all just kind of a work of having done lots of solo improvised, sets in my life, and thinking about drums in an unconventional way, and trying to make a record that does a lot of the things that I've been talking about with these records, where it's weird and it's abstract, and there's a lot of delicate, beautiful moments in there, and there's metal, and there's folk music, and there's, it's everything that I feel like I'm drawn to. So, also, another note about it, it's a deeply personal, kind of record about identity for me too. It's kind of about exploring what it means for me to be Filipino American and growing up, here, trying to find community and connect with community. I was able to go to the Philippines for the first time just several years ago, and I got some recordings of, the city, the environment, and also just of my family, sitting down to have a meal, that I was able to incorporate in the record, which adds a really interesting texture to me, and kind of ties all the pieces together for me about it. But yeah, just wanted to say that about it as well.
That's beautiful, man. Really excited to hear it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Chris, I had such a good time. This was such a very fruitful conversation. All these records I want to go check out more. I believe I actually have Perceptual on vinyl already. I have a lot of Brian's stuff, but I definitely want to get that Gillian Welch one as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Cool. Sounds good. Take care. Bye.
All right, today's big fat favorite is from Griffin Goldsmith from the band Dawes, and his choice was the album, the Stax Profile record of Little Milton. The release year is 2006. The artist is Little Milton, and his song choice is Let Me Down Easy live, and it's the fill at 2 minutes and 36 seconds. It's probably my favorite fill of all time, and the drummer is Caleb Emphrey. And this is what Griffin has to say. Dynamics, in all caps. I was really taken aback by the drummer's dynamic range in this song. Playing the verse at that volume really creates space for the drummer to say something by laying in. And the timekeeping is not metronomic. The tempo follows the energy. Buckle up. This is going to change your life.
Yes, I did. That a man is supposed to do. But oh, you're taking advantage of me. Because you know I'm a fool for you. If you got somebody, Lord have mercy.
And that's the show. If you're listening on a platform that allows ratings and reviews, do that. It helps more people find the show, so it'll get bigger and better, and hopefully I'll have a chance to sell out one day. But you'll be an OG listener that can brag to all your friends. Anyways, why don't you go and check us out at bigfatsnaredrum.com and follow us on all the socials. Just search for Big Fat Snare Drum and you will find us. The show is edited in part using Isotope RX Audio Editor. It's amazing, so go check that out at isotope.com. And thanks again to Gunnar Olsen for the theme music. Bye.